Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is my review of Twilight's Kingdom, where every pony got their butts kicked. Again! No! But yet, we were all saved by the awesome magic of friendship. Yay! This episode was truly awesome. Or is it? Uh-oh. This will probably be a long one, so get comfortable, kids. Oh, well, anyway, this was an awesome episode with emotional ups and downs and incredible, if not yet unexpected, My Little Pony Princess Smackdown between Super Alicorn Twilight and the incredibly evil Tarek. That's Lord Tarek to you. However, this is definitely one of these episodes where if you stop and think about it, things don't seem to make sense, so don't think about it too much. Just enjoy the show, kids. But there were several things about this episode that don't make a lot of sense when you go back and think about it. Oh dear. Certainly, Princess Celestia's plan to give all the princesses magic to Twilight had a flaw that was pointed out by the other analysts that Tarek might not know about Princess Twilight, but Discord does. Which pretty much destroys Celestia's plan, and Celestia, I'm behind you 100%, but having Twilight keep secrets from her friends has never and will never be the right thing to do. I think I'm going to make a separate video discussing Celestia's plan and the crisis caused by Tarek. Which brings me to my first major criticism, which is that this episode is so hurtful! There was some really rather disturbing imagery in this episode. Everything from Tarek being sent to the underworld, all of the ponies having their magic and or strength being stolen, the melting of Twilight's window, and the princesses were sent to the underworld. No! As Defender of Equestria, this is just so hurtful! You will not hurt the ponies, and especially not the princesses! You have to go through me first. I didn't say it would be hard, but you still have to go through me first. Again, as Defender of Equestria, it makes me really sad to think that if I was in this situation, there's pretty much nothing I could do except lose and lay unconscious on the floor. Honestly, this is a little borderline for a kid's show, but really isn't that bad after a couple viewings. But still, some of these images are pretty disturbing the first time you see them. Oh dear, I think I'm going to save my full feelings on these kind of things for a separate video. However, there is good news. When Tarek first reveals himself, most of the ponies don't cower and hide. They stand and fight, even though in a way that's exactly what he wanted them to do. Oh dear. Also, Shining Armor stayed strong and held his ground as best as he could and gotten a pretty good shot until he, too, was defeated. But he actually had a pretty good last line asking Discord, "How could you?" Oh, poor Shining Armor. Later, when Tarek comes to steal the princess's magic, Celestia is defiant and strong throughout the whole scene, even getting in a pretty amusing smirk when she knows she's gotten one over on Tarek. So, yes! That is until he sends them all to the underworld. No! You will not do that to the princesses! I must save you! But I couldn't because I was knocked out at the time. Honestly, the underworld really isn't that bad, but it is still a kind of disturbing idea when you really think about it. Darn it, if only my caster shot something other than magic! We really need some kind of intervention because we're all doomed! Doomed, I tell you! Most of the ponies have betrayed, the royal guard have been defeated, the princesses are lost. I'm so depressed right now that I can't imagine how it could get any worse! By Celestia, what have they done? They blew up the library! No! You tree killers! The horror! No, that's okay, but a moment of silence for the library. We shall miss you. Ouch, that was harsh. Good thing Twilight got over her attachment to her old books, or rather, she didn't because all those books in her home have been destroyed. Where will Ponyville get their books? How will the Cutie Mark Crusaders learn for the sake of learning? Oh dear, Tarek, now you've done it. Twilight is so gonna kick your butt now. And oh my gosh, did Twilight try? Ooh. Uh, Twilight, when did you learn how to fight like that? Twilight scares me. No, just kidding. But that fight was pretty awesome. But I must say, rather out of place in a children's show, especially one whose premise is supposed to be the magic of friendship. Unleashing the awesome power of alicorn magic so violently is just not the My Little Pony way. However, I still like this fight since Twilight actually pulled some pretty good moves on Tarek. For example, teleporting above him, then nailing him from behind was a pretty clever move in my opinion. It makes this more than just a mindless brawl. However, that's not to say that brute force wasn't the main driving force of this fight, but I was happy to see even a slightly tactical nature to this fight. But just like in Canterlot Wedding, this fight is ultimately pointless, since given the nature of the show and the circumstance of the story, it can only end in a draw. As DigiBrody said, they could have just had Twilight and Tarek shoot their biggest beam at each other, have them get cancelled out, and then continue on with, "It looks like we've reached an impasse." However, I don't think I would have wanted to have had this fight be pulled, because it was so awesome, it was really cool, but again, it's really pushing the whole children's show thing. It isn't really in the spirit of MOP, and it is ultimately pointless, so ugh. Also, this was clearly meant for the Brodies and not the 6-year-olds, just as, in a way, this whole season was, and for the most part, that's okay, but I don't like doing things for the sake of doing them, especially to please an audience that, frankly, is well outside the target audience of the show. However, I still would not want this fight to be pulled from the episode, simply because it was so awesome and I enjoyed it, and it was cool, but I see what you were trying to do, Megan McCarthy, and thank you! Thank you for trying to appeal to the Brodies. Because there's certainly nothing wrong with doing things specifically for the Brodies. For example, Derpy! Yo-ho, that was cool. But I don't think they should be done at the expense of the original target audience, because without them, in theory, the show would die, and that would obviously be bad. And besides, what makes the show so awesome is that anyone from a 6-year-old to an 86-year-old can enjoy the show. I just want the show to stay that way. So moving on to Twilight finding her key. I find this whole thing emotionally unsatisfying because I just don't buy the idea that Discord and Twilight are really friends or that anyone has really learned anything here. This just isn't as convincing or as emotionally exciting or satisfying as some of the other keys, like when Coco Pamel gives Rarity the spool of thread after seeing how generous Rarity was to all her friends. That was so cool and relatable, and it was just awesome, but this moment between Twilight and Discord just simply isn't. After Tarek betrays Discord, it should be pretty obvious to him that Tarek was never his friend, and that Twilight and the main 6, at least on some level, have always been his friend, and on some level actually did care about him. Because Twilight didn't have to release Discord, she could have just left him in prison forever and ever, but she did that because she does care about him, even just a tiny little bit. Besides this, as DigiBrony pointed out, Discord's true friendship is with Fluttershy, and even Discord's apology is directed at Fluttershy and not Twilight, so Twilight isn't really teaching Discord anything here. I also don't think the main 6 really had very much to do in this two-parter, and in the end is almost entirely about Twilight, which makes this whole thing with the box not really very interesting, because this episode is just about Twilight, not all the main 6 together, so But another issue is that Twilight giving up the alicorn magic for her friends doesn't make much sense either. Isn't this basically dooming Equestria for the sake of her friends? Isn't that really, really bad? Ugh. I've always liked to believe that the rainbow shimmers are the Tree of Harmony somehow guiding the main 6 down the right path. But in this moment, it's almost like the Tree of Harmony is saying, "It's alright, Twilight. Choose your friends. It's gonna be okay." I don't know if that is correct or not, but this is how I'm going to decide to interpret this, because it is the only way that choice makes any sense. Now, moving on to finally opening the box. This was also really unsatisfying, since even without being an analyst and thinking about this over the last couple months, most of the audience probably knew they were going to open the box and unleash some kind of new power that was going to defeat Tarek in an instant. But unlike when the main 6 first unleashed the elements of harmony all the way back in season 1, there's no big revelation or any pony learning anything here. This just isn't what I've dubbed an emotional power moment, because there is no real emotion behind it. It's just something that we're waiting and expecting to happen. What makes the elements of harmony so cool to me is that the journey it usually takes to unleash the elements usually involves some sort of emotional journey that is often very satisfying in the end. And in a way, that's still true here, but the stories that led to them finding the keys happened so long ago that the emotional value has long since been lost, to the point where they are just keys they just have to put into a lock and turn. However, it was still cool to see the elements of harmony unleashed upon Tarek and put him back where he belongs, freeing the princesses, giving everybody their strength back, and we're saved once again by the magic of friendship. Yes! I must say, I'm not a fan of the rainbow forms either. Their colors are pretty bad. Once I got a good look at them, I noticed their cutie marks are practically graffitied, like, all over them. They really do look like a 5-year-old designed them. Sorry, Hasbro! Although I'm glad to see they replaced the library, I'm not liking the castle a whole lot. It looks like a dark version of the Crystal Empire castle and simply doesn't fit in Ponyville. It doesn't look like it belongs there. It's also clearly a design for a future playset that Hasbro is probably going to market and make in the future, which would be fine if this design worked, but it doesn't. The library was a far better, warmer, and more inviting place that felt like a good home for Twilight. I miss it already. Hopefully the castle will magically change into something a little more warm and inviting like the library was by the time Season 5 rolls around. However, I do like the idea of the My Little Pony Friendship Council, since Twilight is officially commissioned as the Princess of Friendship. It makes sense of her that all her friends will quote-unquote rule with her together, and I think that's pretty cool. In a way, that's what they've been doing since the very beginning of the series, with basically Twilight being in charge and the main six kind of all working together and deciding things together, so that's pretty cool. Spike even got his own throne, that was cool, and Discord seems to be a quote-unquote casual member of this council. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. This reminds me of Halo, where every time we get a question answered, we get 5 new questions put in its place. Oh dear. But, oh well, I guess that what makes the show so interesting. But it does seem like a lot has been introduced and not really explained in a very short amount of time. Obviously, there are a lot of new questions about this castle, its role, and more importantly, what the main six are going to do there, but those are probably topics for another video and will most likely be answered at the beginning of Season 5. Oh dear, after being so hard on this two-parter, you'd think I didn't like it. But, however, I really do! Despite its issues, and frankly, you can find issue with anything if you look deep enough, this two-parter was awesome! Despite how depressing it initially made me feel, I still really enjoyed it since it did have a lot of good humor with super eloquent Twilight and even a few casual jokes from Discord. The fight was awesome, and while the resolution doesn't have the same level of emotion like the previous appearances of the elements of harmony, it was still pretty cool to see the magic of friendship prevail once again. Yay! I also really liked the 2 songs, while perhaps not the greatest of the show. They both got the emotions flowing, so that was cool. Especially the first one. That was just so touching. Anytime Celestia sings about Destiny, it makes me want to cry. All the princesses got to sing and have a little moment with Twilight, and I don't care what DigiBrony says, this song was awesome! Roar! I will not let being an analyst get in the way of me enjoying this song, and this whole two-parter! But I must admit, this one shot confuses me, since it seems if the princesses were totally vertical like this, that they should just fall from the sky. But we'll let that go. I really relate to this song because I do want to do more than just be a programmer and a gamer, which is partly the reason why I continue to make these videos and why I'm Defender of Equestria! I think in short, Twilight is saying that I'm ready to take on these responsibilities that I've been afraid of since I became a princess. I think I'm going to make a separate video on Twilight's sudden change of heart, since it does seem to come out of nowhere at first, that all of a sudden Princess Twilight wants these responsibilities that she's gone out of her way to avoid, and not really be a true princess. But I think that after the Equestria Games, Twilight has come to the realization of just how unsatisfying it is to have so few responsibilities, and after all this time during the season, she's finally ready and willing to take them on. If that's true, then it's okay for Twilight to have this change of heart, and it's actually pretty cool in my opinion, since she's finally deciding to become a princess, and that's definitely very cool. I think that's the ultimate theme of this episode, is choices, and the role we choose to take on in the world. Twilight, in a way, had no say in becoming a princess. But in this episode, she not only decide she's ready to be a princess, she's also deciding what her role should be as a princess. She's finding answers to the tough questions she was asking herself during the first song, like, who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? These are not easy questions to answer, and I think that's pretty cool that Twilight is willing and able to answer these questions during these episodes. Good for her! Another thing that was cool was the backstory of Tarek and Scorpad, and we even got to see the book again. Cool! There's a lot to think about from this new backstory, but I think Scorpad is pretty cool, where it's almost like, well, I was gonna steal all your magic, but I've learned that ponies are awesome! I love you guys! Oh my gosh, he's been converted into a Brony! Yes, that's awesome! Oh dear, too bad his brother didn't feel the same way. Of course, I couldn't finish this review without discussing Lord Tarek, who is definitely the most evil and threatening villain in the history of the show. He definitely wants to take over the world! But first, to borrow a line from Captain Kirk, does every pony know Tarek was a villain from Generation 1 but me? Bummer. Anyway, despite him being super powerful and threatening, his greatest strength is his intelligence. He's one of the few villains that truly feels intelligent, and unlike Christmas, doesn't make any ridiculously stupid mistakes that lead to his downfall. He's only brought down because he's completely unaware of the chest and the power it contains. I'm sure if he did, the story would have ended quite differently. I will probably do a character analysis on him as well as a comparison between him and Discord. But in short, he's almost a double threat since he's both physically and magically powerful, as well as being super intelligent. That's a very dangerous combination, so how can you take some pony like that down? Well, with the magic of friendship, of course, since there really isn't any single power that could possibly stand against the kind of true unity like the friendship the main six possess inside them. So overall, while this episode could have been better, it was still an awesome story with some good and some not so good emotional moments, but it was still very well done nonetheless. At last it is done! I need some rest now. And I think every pony on Team My Little Pony should get some rest too. Especially you, Daniel Ingram. You all worked so hard! So thank you very much to Team My Little Pony for another great season, and looking forward to Season 5. Yo-ho! So that is the end of my review of Twilight's Kingdom. This is Blue Star. Stay strong and pony on. Blue Star out.